Turf Today is brought to you by Toro. Maintaining a golf course demands the right equipment and finely tuned irrigation. Toro has the total solution for both. We're talking mowers, vehicles, sprayers, and everything you need for a state-of-the-art irrigation system. No other brand has a more complete lineup or a bigger network of people to support you. Find your local distributor at toro.com and see how Toro is always solving and always evolving.
I'm sorry.
You're
I,
good.
It's all good, buddy.
Andy, I said if this was a tea time, he wouldn't have been late.
I like legitimately, I don't know how I screwed that up. I had
That's
like a thing in my calendar, and I had this in my calendar like since we set it up at 2:15.
that's okay. I was wondering if you thought we were Central Time or something like that, you know?
That's what I think. I just did the Central
Yeah.
Time math. I like usually convert. Since I moved out here, I like generally like kind of. I don't know. I don't really live in a time zone, so I think that's like one of the issues. So
No,
I'm really
I
sorry
get it.
about that.
Dude,
Thanks
no
for
apologies.
sitting around for me.
No apologies necessary. It worked out really well. We had podcast number 2 with Phil basically, so we got to catch up with Phil, and it all worked out. All worked out. What podcast are we recording?
Shotgun.
Shotgun. Nice.
So I had like my schedule all laid out.
Yeah.
It's bad. Well, when you said, "Are you still good?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." Like, so I should have
What's
said,
wrong,
like,
Brian?
Yeah.
just said like, "I'll talk to you in an hour."
Yeah, it was just like one of those subtle hints. I didn't want to be like, "Hey, man, where are you?" But just
You
nudge.
should have
Just
said
nudge.
that.
That's okay. Hey, you're doing us a favor by joining the show. So I told Phil, I said you probably got a better relationship with him than I do. Why don't you shoot him a text and give him some shit or something? Yeah, let's see if that pushes him along.
I just didn't know I was. I
It's okay. Again, no apologies necessary, man. It all worked out. I've got no kids tonight, nothing, so it's fine. Phil's
That's
Phil's
delightful.
probably the only guy we're
Phil's
inconveniencing here, so it's
Phil's
okay.
just working away.
That's
He
it.
got his
That's it.
first vacation in his life, and
And here he
now
is.
he's right back to working.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. So how
Well,
are you, Andy? Appreciate you joining us, man.
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying November. Just a little bit less to do than in September or October, but yeah, I'm enjoying. I'm excited to be here talking with you guys.
You're gonna basically have the firing squad in front of you here today. You got 3
Yeah.
guys hammering away at you.
I hope you aren't all asking me questions.
Oh, dude, get ready. It's gonna be like lightning round stuff. It's gonna be insane. So start off, Andy. Just kind of tell us who you are.
I'm Andy Johnson. I'm the founder of Fried Egg Golf. People ask me what I do. I say I write and talk about golf for a living, but more and more so, I do way less writing and mostly just talking. So that's what I do. And that's who I am.
That's awesome. I always have the same problem when people ask me what I do. I'm like, I just kind of travel the country and tell stories about superintendents. It's kind of a great gig,
Yeah, it's fun. It's nice when your job doesn't feel like work, and that's the way I kind of feel about what I do. And I'm sure you guys probably feel similar.
It can be fun. The schedule can be all over the place sometimes. So it's we definitely understand things being a little bit mixed up. We've had those issues before. So we really appreciate you coming on, Andy. This is something a little bit different for us. We're usually talking to people like Phil and superintendents and stuff. So it's great to get a different look from somebody like yourself in the industry. You cover a lot of great things for the game and get to talk to a lot of great people. So it's great to have you on here. We'd love to hear about how you kind of got into golf and what kind of got you into sort of working in the game that you love.
I was a kid. It was 1996. My dad, my grandpa, and my uncle used to play golf, and I was like the kid that always wanted to play golf with them. They would leave on Saturday morning, especially like when we were on family vacations. That's when I'd want to like go play. But anyways, my 10th birthday was 96, and my parents got me a junior set of clubs, and 1996 was an interesting time for golf. That's Tiger Woods, right? So I'm like a Tiger kid. 96, I got a junior set. I got a season pass to Lake Bluff Golf Club in the Chicago suburbs, which I could ride my bike to. My neighbor, I had a friend that lived down the street who also got a season pass, the same age. It was $180. We would ride our bikes to the golf course every day of the summer, and we would sit there. It had a great little chipping putting green and chip and putt. When I got old enough, I started caddying. I first caddied at Conway Farms in Chicago. Then I moved over to Knollwood Club, and I caddied, worked bag room. We had a superintendent there, Randy Waller. I'm pretty convinced that he added me without adding me to his grounds team. Our pro asked, this is, he was at Knollwood Club, legendary superintendent there. Our pro asked to open the range 30 minutes early, and he said, well, we could do that. We could open the range 30 minutes early, but one of your guys has to come out and blow off the grass clippings because we're not going to do that if you want the range. It was a quintessential pro shop maintenance shop trade. So I in turn my arrival time got pushed up 30 minutes, and I was out there blowing grass off. So that was, this is my only real grounds crew work in my life. But then I was at Knollwood through college. So that was I would go to college and then work at a golf course in the summer all through college. And that's kind of my like entrance into the game, and stayed really connected into the I feel like everybody that that doesn't go into golf as a profession and that was really into golf has this period of time in their early 20s where you fall out of touch with the game. And I definitely had that, where like a couple years I didn't play much, but then I started playing tournament golf again. And then I just got really back deep into the game. I mean, this is probably 27. And I just started playing a ton of golf, and what I was watching golf and playing mid-am tournaments. And then I just one day I decided I was going to start something. I had I was working for some tech startups in Chicago. So I just had the entrepreneurial itch, and when you're around a lot of tech founders of companies, you start to I at least, this was me, I at least looked around and thought, you know what, I think I could do this if you talk to enough of them. And I got a great piece of advice from a friend of mine who had started a company, and he said, well, you could just talk about starting this for 6 months and try and make it perfect and the idea perfect, or you could just start it today. So that night I went home and I wrote a newsletter, and we were off and going. That was the start. So I told him my idea. It was the idea was a week old, and I didn't, and it's he was so right, because everybody thinks about ideas, and I imagine this is kind of true of the turf industry. If you have a problem and you're trying to think about an idea, you think about the idea and the solution a lot. The best thing you could do is just try it. Just see if it works. Right?
See what
because,
sticks. 100%.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just, so yeah, that's the thing. It's I started writing, and I started writing about just stuff that I was interested in. I have this really and I think this is generally a belief that everybody should have, is if I'm into something, if I'm really into something, there are probably tens of thousands of other people in the world that are really into that. And if you have tens of thousands of people that are into what you're into, and you can present the information and stuff at a reasonable level, then you've got a business.
I was going to ask, I mean, what exactly was that niche that you saw wasn't being met that you thought you could fulfill?
I think the most fascinating aspect of the game of golf, what makes it different, is the playing field's never the same. Even if it's the golf course that you play every day of the week, right? The wind's going to be a little different. The turf's going to be a little bit different. The pins are never perfectly in the same exact spot. The pins and the tees are never. So this sport like when you think about like the level of detail and depth in the sport, what makes it an unconquerable sport. That's what it makes it interesting. Like one of the things that frustrates me about the game of golf is we always feel like we have to like water it down. It's like, oh, we need it to be easier. Like the essence of the game is that whether you're Rory McIlroy or you're a 32 handicap that's played 7 rounds of golf, whether you're one or the other, the game is just as frustrating. I mean, that's why people become obsessed and truly sick about the sport is because it's something that you're never satisfied. Like you shoot the best round of your life. You can play I like remember vividly like the best round I've ever played. And I still think about like I 3-putted here and I missed like a 5-footer on this hole. I still think about that. It's the best round I've ever played in my life, but I still think about like how I should have been probably 2 shots better.
That sounds like Phil presenting his golf course. It's absolutely perfect, but he saw, a rake mark that was just slightly higher than something else out there, right?
Well, I mean, that's the fascinating thing about golf maintenance too, is like I'm sure as a superintendent, you always feel like, oh, we could be a little bit better here, a little bit better here. You're never actually fully satisfied with everything that you're presenting.
100%, Andy. I mean, you nailed it. 100%, and then, you think about those times where you had the round of your life, but a lot of times you made a 40-footer in there or a 30-footer that you had no business making. Yes. You chipped in, like couldn't get, you got up and down out of a garbage can, but then you also missed like 2 3-foot birdies, and you're like, oh, that could have been 2 shots better, but in reality, it could have been 4 shots worse, at least with my game anyways, so, You nailed it. I think the one common theme that we all have on here is the passion for golf, and Andy, I would say that you've done so much for the game of golf, call it from when you got started till now is just remarkable. And you've opened everybody's eyes to golf all across the world, which is so cool. And, and I look at what's come along. Social media has done so much for the game of golf. I'm from Rochester, New York. I would never know about golf in Northern Michigan if it wasn't for Andy or, all these guys, and you think about Instagram, Twitter, and all this stuff and all the cool places that you've opened up to people and opened people's eyes. I commend you for that and the golf course architecture stuff. And it's remarkable. And, golf is so cool now that I can't wait to go play wherever it is because you just never know what lies around the next corner, So thank you for making golf better, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate that. I mean, like that's what's so cool about it. I think in general is just like that's what the golf course and golf course architecture stuff is. Why, like I think like one of the other reasons like I really got drawn to that route is like. At that time in my life, I was traveling a lot for like weddings, for example. And like, when you're like 27 going to a wedding or 26 and single, like you go to this wedding, you have like time to kill. It's like the perfect time to go play golf. And it was so hard to figure out like where to play golf in like other cities. Like, where you like to play in your city. And like what I like always think about is like almost without fail, the highest priced golf course in a city, public golf course in a city is not the best golf course to play. Like not the one that you're going to enjoy the most, or at least me, like everybody's tastes are different. But it's like very true about Chicago. Like the places I recommend people go play are like so vastly different than the highest price round in the city. Now, like over time, it's changed to like what people recommend now. But like the I think that's like when I think about like when the space started, it was like every like how golf courses were deemed good on the public side were basically based off of how much they charged.
Yeah.
And I think like they found this in I was in Ireland this year. I was talking to a course. And I was like, it's like, it's not like one of the big names, I was like, oh, like how much is this? And they told me how much it was. I was like, what? And like, that's so expensive. And they're like, well, you know what happened is like we were really cheap, but we found that nobody was coming. And we raised the prices a ton, like a ton. And then all of a sudden we were book solid.
Just the
Wild.
perception, huh?
Awesome.
I mean, it's just like a crazy phenomenon with golf courses, right? Like,
What a business model. Raise the prices. That'll get everybody in here.
I think it's like actually like for like a struggling golf course that's like not getting a lot of rounds. I think you should just raise the price
Yeah.
because like you're not making a lot of money when you're serving a lot of $20 rounds. You
Yeah.
might as well serve like is your patronage going to decrease by 20, like this is an awful thing for affordable golf, but like when you think about it from a business side, there's no like I think like to me, like, and no offense to you, Phil, you run a extraordinary operation in Oakland Hills, 36 holes of very well maintained, immaculate turf. But to me, like the greatest feat in the world is the person that pulls off like affordable golf, busy, affordable golf that's really good golf. Like to me, like those owners and operators and superintendents that like manage to pull it off is like, like this is the American golf culture model, but like those people are like should be like put on pedestals. It's like you can deliver phenomenal golf with a crew of 5 people for $28, like Aiken Golf Club. Like, okay, like this is, and it's like a good surface. Like that's extraordinary. I'm like I'm all over the place.
No, you're
sorry.
good. And I think you see a lot
100%.
of, I think you
I
see a
agree.
lot of great superintendents that come from that model. I mean, I know so many that had started at a public golf course, with duct tape and shoestrings and stuff, and that's made them so resourceful to be able to elevate themselves and really be great problem solvers as they move up within the industry. So I think you're right. I mean, I think there is a ton to be said about having that ability to make something out of nothing.
I think one of the things that is interesting though is like that's like a completely different job than what Phil does, right? Like Phil's job, like the pressure, the expect like the day in day out expectation, and I think that's probably like the difference, right? Is like Phil's expectation level is like so high from like the patrons at Oakland Hills, which are members and their guests, right? Versus like if you're paying $25, it's okay if there's a spot here and a spot here. Everything, because there is like that. That's like the whole thing. Like with like a meal, like you're so much more. You have so much more sympathy or empathy or whatever it would be, right verb is for a place that is. That if you spend $10 on a meal versus $100.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So going back to the fried egg here, Andy, talk about you started with basically a newsletter or blog post, and now you're all over pretty much every media outlet that you could possibly imagine. Talk about the evolution of the fried egg and kind of where you are now.
Yeah, so the start was a newsletter and it would go out every Monday and Wednesday. And like quickly, very quickly. So I had this idea I was just gonna do a newsletter. Right? Just gonna be a newsletter. And then I was like, well, I need somewhere for somebody to sign up for the newsletter.
Were you just sending it to your buddies at first? Like, hey, read
It went
this?
to 10, it went to 10 people. And then I went through my email and I found like everybody that I'd ever played golf with or talked about golf with. So that was like, it started with like 200 people. But then I realized I needed a website because I needed somewhere for people to sign up for it. And I was like a very bad writer. My wife like was in tears at it. She would edit it. She knew nothing about golf. Thank God that's out of our relationship where she has to read what I write about golf.
For that. Yeah.
Like, but But anyways, so then I needed somewhere where people could sign up for the newsletter. So I started the website. And then like, the newsletter was growing. Like I'd send them and people would sign up. Like people would forward them to people. Hey, this is a cool newsletter. People would sign up. Then I realized like, hey, if I write articles, more people will sign up because like people will get to the website and people would sign up. So like it really was around this time, like I started to write articles, and that's when I started to write articles about golf architecture because the newsletter was always kind of like pretty pro golf focused. And architecture was something I was always interested in. I was a college kid in the dorms reading Golf Club Atlas. Like
Nice.
I was like the kid that was
It's a
like
fun Friday night.
yeah, designing holes on like what it was, like Microsoft Golf 95 or something.
Yeah.
You could design golf holes in that game, I think it was. I would draw golf holes like during school and high school. But then yeah, so I like Golf Club Atlas is an amazing resource. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for it. But I always found the place to be a little like it was closed off. It was like I just didn't think that golf architecture had ever made itself very approachable. Like if you wanted to learn about golf architecture, it's like read this book from 1926. Or Tom Doak and Jeff Shackelford have written some really good intro books, but like like this is the digital age. So I just saw a great opportunity to like make golf architecture approachable. And I think like one of the reasons that it worked really well like was that I was someone that was like learning as I went. And I was taking readers, especially in the early days, along with me on my learning. And so I started to write about golf architecture and like I'll never forget it. Like I published an article on 4th of July. Got it done. My wife had it up 4th of July morning. I published it, and then we went out for a 4th of July celebration. But I checked back in on like our analytics on like, and it was like 10x the number of visitors we'd ever done. And it was like that. It was like, yeah, this is working. So that's when I started the podcast. Because like I realized like golf architecture was like this really, like it's the perfect example. Everybody told me like there's no way this business can center around golf architecture. There's no way. There's not an audience. And it was just that nobody had ever cultivated an audience. Like there's hundreds of thousands of golfers that are interested in golf architecture. I believe there's probably 1 million to 2 million golfers that are interested in golf architecture that just don't know that they would be really interested in it. So it's a matter of getting to them. But anyways, the podcast then started it was like, it was that whole idea is like, it's pretty similar to what it is now. It's like pro golf and golf architecture. And now there's golf maintenance stuff, but like, it's really just like the idea of the podcast was like, I'm going to talk to people that I'm interested in talking to. And yeah, so that started. And then like, as I started to evolve, like, I think like, I wanted to start to like show like golf architecture is such a visual thing. Like the easiest way to understand golf architecture is to see it. So the longest I've ever thought about buying something. And I mean, I was running like, I mean, I had no money.
It's usually how it starts. Yep.
Like no money.
Yeah.
Like, I was lucky. My wife had but then girlfriend, we lived together. She had a full-time job. I was able to get on her benefits plan as a domestic partner because we lived together.
Nice.
Like you talk about like just like things like, I mean, like I still think about it. Like I made less, like I'm 30 years old and I was making less than I made when I was 23. I was making less than I was made when I was a caddy at age 16.
But you were having way more fun.
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. It was the greatest. I think about back to that time. So like I miss it so much because I woke up every day and it was like, what am I going to make today? And I didn't make any of it well, but I wasn't caught up on like perfect. I was like going to go explore golf for the day and like nerd out about something. And it was so fun. But anyways, yeah, then I started the pod, but then, so I had no money, like very little. I mean, like no money in the bank account. Like the bank account was just, the business account was like a month to month thing. And I like knew I needed a drone. I knew I needed one. And this was maybe 2016. I knew I needed it, but I was so afraid of buying one because it was like $1,500. Like this was like a huge capital outlay for the company. And I mean, I thought about it for like 4 months. I mean, I was on the website every day thinking about
Which one
buying
was it? Was it the Phantom
the
Pro 2 or something? What'd you start with?
The three.
The 3. Okay, yep, I had that one.
Or maybe no, it was the 2. It was the 2.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the 2.
Right
And
after
it could only
did
go
built-ins.
500 yards.
Yeah. So you got the step up. I started with the one where you had to attach the GoPro to and like have all
Yeah.
the
Oh, those are
different
bad.
satellites. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
So I like knew I needed this to do what we really wanted to do, which was like to really show people golf art. You like people can like there are romantics that are like, I hate drone photography and videography. I like photos from the ground. You cannot show golf architecture and how a hole works out in one shot without a drone. Unless it's a par 3. Like even a par 3, you can't because you can't show the green contours. What a drone does in one picture is you can like the easiest thing to understand about golf architecture is strategy if you're a golfer, right? Play here, you get that advantage, this angle, like this is the bunker scheme, this is how it works. Like this is why the golf hole is the only way you can do it is with a drone. And I knew this, but I couldn't. So anyways, I bought the drone. And then it's like, you went through this too. I have to learn how to fly this thing. I was going to parking lots and just practicing flying it.
Not a ton of places to practice flying that thing in Chicago,
Oh my
I would
God.
imagine.
I mean, the other aspect of this is I lived in the city at this point. I was like walking out to the lakefront. I was practicing. I would take pictures of like the skyline and stuff. But I was like terrified. And again, this drone was like, it was such an important purchase for me. I was terrified of losing it or like getting robbed. Like if somebody knew that it was a $1,500 piece of equipment, I was worried somebody was going to like rob me. So anyways, it was God.
Yeah.
The early drone, and then it like inevitably you crash. There was no obstacle avoidance those days.
Yeah.
And I
Eventually
crashed
it
a
hit
lot
something.
of drones. I eventually crashed a lot of drones. Like
Crashed in at number 5 at Oakland Hills.
I did crash at Oakland Hills. I mean, there's like a 12 course list of places that I've crashed. I've crashed at Chicago Golf, Oakland Hills, Culver Academies. That course, the drone literally just fell out of the air. It had like a battery error. And it just like, and it happened right in front of me. I watched it just fall out of the air and I almost cried.
Yeah. I panic anytime I take it over water. I just dread that happening, losing everything. Yeah, I've had it. I think I had one fall out of the air. It was a Phantom 2. I think it fell out of the air at Longaberger way back in the day. But yeah,
Oh
that's
my
always
God.
terrifying. Always
Longaberger, you're calling it before it changed to Virtues.
I won't call it Virtues, man. It's always going to be Longaberger. I'm sorry. It's always going to be Longaberger. So talk about you kind of made that connection between architecture and superintendents, but I'd love to hear kind of how you got started with talking to superintendents, because quite frankly, you're, one of, I hate the term, but really you're a golf influencer. You're one of the few that is actually doing content with superintendents. How did you kind of start doing that?
Honestly, in terms of like the fried egg, superintendent journey. I knew a couple of superintendents, but my first superintendent I met through the fried egg, Phil Cuffare.
No way.
Really?
There you go.
Yeah.
Great story.
It was the first year of the fried egg. I was playing in a match at Oak Park. And I think it was the first full year of the fried egg. Maybe might have been the second. But anyways, Phil reached out to me through Twitter. I think that I was playing out. And anyways, we met when I played a practice round.
Yeah.
And so that was when Phil was at Oak Park. And yeah, so that's how I, and it was like for me, like, at my last job, like when I worked at Knollwood, I talked to Randy Waller like all the time. He was like the guy on the golf staff, like the golf staff I talked to the most. Just because I was at the range a lot. He would hit balls a lot at the range, and we just sit and talk. Just
Did he put a
wasted.
blow in your hands then too?
Like, I think he must have appreciated my blower
Yeah,
technique.
careful there.
I know.
You caught yourself.
I did. I saw where it was going. I didn't like where it was going. I imagine the turf industry has got to be worried about that. But anyways, yeah, so I met Phil. It opened up this like whole new idea. Like one of the things like, so at Oak Park, I played this event and the course was like freaking nuclear. Phil had his approaches so tight, and Oak Park's like this very flat piece of, it might be like the flattest piece of property in the world. Like, I think like in terms of like natural features for a golf course, Oak Park might have like the least desirable natural features in the. It's like a dead flat property with like a square fence around it.
Yeah.
And there's like one creek that runs through it.
Yeah.
And but the golf course like was just alive. And it was like, I think there was like something going on in Chicago then too, where Phil had Oak Park just diabolical. Brian Palmer at Shore Acres, Curtis James at Old Elm, and Scott Bordner at Chicago Golf. There was just this like change. Like as someone who had played tournament golf their entire life in Chicago, I look at that period of time. It was like that group of superintendents there completely changed the golf culture in the city. And forever and ever, the gold standard of Chicagoland maintenance was kind of like the old school Medina narrow neck, Butler National, everything kind of narrow, lots of rough, and everything narrows in at the neck. And then it's like thick grass, green, softer. And that group of it was, all at that time, all young superintendents completely revolutionized the way golf was there. And I think like playing that event at Oak Park, like it illuminated to me, like this is a good golf course, but the conditioning makes it a great golf course. And like the level of precision that was required those 2 days that I played there was just like, it was like if you hit great shots, you're rewarded. But like if you hit a great shot with the wrong shape, it was going over the green, right? And like you just start to like think about what that gets out of the architecture. And I think that was like probably like a crystallizing moment, honestly, in the journey of the fried egg, was playing that event at Phil's course there. And just generally like being in Chicago and what was happening there, where you just saw like this changing of the guard. And I think it's like happened across the country at this point. But it was definitely like a moment for like Chicago turf, because like you drive up to Milwaukee, for example. I still like I think Milwaukee's kind of undergoing the change now. It's turning over. But you drive up to Milwaukee in 2016 and the courses would be like pillows. And then you come down to Chicago and they just be rocket ships, right? And I think that was like the thing, like you just realize like how much more the details matter when a golf course is set up that way, where as a player, if you're really trying to score, you need to have like full command of the ball. Like everything, like the strike matters. If you catch it a fraction off the toe or the heel, it matters. And but then for like the average player, for like my mom, who hits a low, like might carry 120 yards, like a low, just
Like my
low
game these days.
runner, like that golf setup, all of a sudden the ball's going, and it's going 220 because it's rolling 100 yards. And I think that's like the thing, like that probably opened my eyes to like the connection and how important the connection of turf and architecture was.
Yeah, I totally agree, Andy. I mean, that's superintendents and golf course architecture go together. And I think that group of time in Chicago, which really throws it back to memory lane, it was,
Brian Moore
Yeah.
at Glenview too.
Yeah.
Didn't mention he was
Scott
great.
Pavelko.
Yeah, Pavelko at Bobolink. I mean, crazy when you start to look at where everybody's gone. Like you're
Yeah.
at, Oakland
Yeah.
Hills, like Scott, like it's wild. Brian's it runs all the courses at Terry ED. Scott
Yeah.
Bordner runs all the Union League courses.
It's mind
Pavelko's
blowing.
at Castle Pines. Like
Yeah.
it is a wild like thing. Like where is it? They were at all these. This concentration of outstanding superintendents were all together in a city at this moment in time. This is like anything. It's like a lot of entrepreneurship, though, is like luck. And like for me, being able to talk to Phil, being able to talk to Brian Palmer, being able to talk to Brian Moore, Scott Pavelko, like that was like, I mean, that was who I was hanging out with because
Yeah.
I needed places to fly the drone. I didn't have any money to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And these were my people that were allowing me to learn how to fly a drone.
Yeah.
So Phil, along those lines, Andy comes to you and asks if he can fly his drone at your property. Do you get value? And then, because at that time, I don't, drones really weren't that popular with superintendents. Is that something you looked at then? If Andy would come out and be like, oh my gosh, totally different perspective and I could do things differently?
Yeah, totally. And, he brought that perspective with him instantly to see the work that we were doing, but to see it from 40,000 feet, I would call it. But I mean, I know he's not going 40,000 feet. And then, I think of the one picture you took, Andy, I think it was a 15 of Oak Park with the Chicago skyline in the background.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, there might even been a plane in the sky from O'Hare because the planes were flying over that. But to see that shot was like mesmerizing, but very rarely. And I think at that period of time, I mean, me and Palmer and all those guys would always talk, but do you run into someone that shares the same passion as you, in this game or likes architecture? And I think being the superintendent, like all of us, we loved golf course architecture. We just didn't know guys were out there like Andy who liked golf course architecture that wasn't a golf course superintendent. And for him to, integrate superintendent with architect with what he does, I mean, it just meshes it together, and it's the perfect recipe for educating people. And now you look at where the game of golf is going, and Bandon Dunes, and stream song. You can sit here for hours and name places, but has really shed light on the architecture, the great architecture that's across the world and in our own backyard. Which I think it just makes this game so much more fun. It makes the golf industry so much cooler from the turf side of it, because now we're getting recognition for maintaining these great golf courses with great golf course architecture. And Andy, you are correct, though. I think like Aiken Golf Club is a way cooler job than Oakland Hills. And I respect those guys so much more than what we do every day.
I don't know. It's different. It's a completely different job.
Yeah,
That's like the thing.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset. And my favorite golf to play is something like that. And what I do is stressful. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, and it's at the highest level. But it's almost I'd say this, and I know we're on a podcast, but it's almost at a fake level. I mean, it's non-realistic at sometimes for a lot of people.
I think like one of the things that I find interesting, that I'd love to do something down the road on. I love golf courses that are run by former superintendents. Like
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
like that, like I love the stories, and like the few that I've been to, and I can't remember all, like the off the top of my head, but like to me, like a golf course is run by superintendents or former superintendents, like that retire and effectively buy them, are always like wonderful places to play golf.
Yeah.
And it's like almost to like a T, like I think like something that like drew me to superintendents also is I was an environmental science major at Illinois. Not a turf major, but like I had to take chemistry. I had to take I had to take some classes that I was way out of my depth. And like to me, like what was kind of crazy, and I think is like starting to change, is like these are like people with like master's degrees in science that work at a golf course. Like these are the most educated people at the golf course. Like I just thought it was kind of crazy. Like I felt like 10 years ago almost now when it was like the superintendent was just like kind of like, oh, that's the superintendent. He cuts the grass. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to this than that. Like, and I think that's like the other thing is like it was an underserved, like interesting aspect about golf. Like if you understand turf a little bit more, you are going to play better golf. Like that's the other thing. Like I'm like a big believer in like golf IQ.
Yeah.
Like if you know it's going to be if you know it's hot and humid and you're going to play a match against your buddy, you know the greens are going to be soft because they got to protect it. You know they're going to be a little slower because like you just can't get them really like you have to you can play a little bit more aggressive. Like these are all like I think like this is where not watering it down just makes people better players. Is like if you understand these little tiny margins, you are a better golfer. Like if you understand like the like a little bit, just even a surface level amount about grasses that you're playing on, you're gonna understand how they interact with your club more. If you're like like okay, like Bermuda rough. If the ball is in there, like the Bermuda rough is super unpredictable. Like it is like these are the nature, like the balls you're gonna sit up, sit down, you're not gonna really know what's gonna happen. But like having an understanding of like it being sticky, like it like there are just aspects of grass, like having an understanding of grass and what you're playing on as like a regular golfer, it helps you. And that's just generally like I think like what I think about with like agronomy, why I'm interested in it is that I know like having conversations with superintendents about this stuff is going to it just helps raise my IQ as a golfer. It's a selfish pursuit. I'm just trying to raise my own IQ.
Definitely the right people to talk to for sure.
I'm glad you talked about the identity a little bit because that's something that we certainly have struggled with, and it's a big reason, like yourself, you starting the Fried Egg, Brian, and I starting companies like this to really highlight and shed some light on the superintendents and all the work being done, and we found that too that it's people come to the golf course to play the course, but there sometimes isn't that respect. So people like you and other influencers in the golf world being able to talk about the agronomy and all the work and all these people that have high level education, where do you think we kind of are right now with the whole kind of the state of turf and the average golfer?
I think there's more awareness to it than ever before, right? Um, I think like I think the industry just in general is at like a very interesting crossroads with the combination of technology that's entering the space, the workforce issues like with like recruitment issues. Um, but that being said, like I think like generation, it's like there are different generations. They value like what I've always like thought about with like superintendents, is like it is like such a delightful job. Like when you think about like you like sure there are pressures. Every job has pressures, right? Um, but like you work outside, you always have different problems. Like there's like a lot of like great things about the job. And I think like when it comes to the average golfer, I do think that there's more awareness about turf and agronomy than ever before. I think back to like foreplay doing the thing about wing foot years ago. Like, I mean, like that wouldn't have ever happened like 10 years before that, you know, like the idea of like when you think about where golf coverage has come from, I think like people like no laying up, they, you know, have they appreciate conditioning, understand what goes into it. You see, like, I mean, like even like leaps and bounds, like stuff, like it's small, but like remember PGA Tour events used to not list the superintendent on the like the little graphics.
Wasn't that long ago? Yep.
Like they now do that. Superintendents have been making it into live from, and you think about the Josh Lewis, Brandel Chambly standoff 10 years ago with the cowboy. What was he called him a cowboy? Brandel did, I think.
Yeah, Chambers,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
He called Josh a cowboy. So like you think about like where it was 10 years ago to like where it is today, I think it's like leaps and bounds forward. And I think like what's coming to light is like that this is a real science. Because like I think that was like the misconception is like people thought it's like, I'll just get out there with your lawnmower and cut the grass.
Throw some water on it too while you're at it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think and like people are now starting to realize like, no, this is the most intensely difficult playing surface like to perfect, right? No other sport that I can think of has to maintain 200 acres of like playing surface. Like you think about Wimbledon, it's like a court.
It's not even close.
You think about a baseball field, right? It's like you're not pushing none of the grass is being pushed to the limits of like green heights and fairways and you know approaches. The grass is like effectively like a short rough, right? So like you just think about like the stress and the strain of it. It is like a supremely it's the especially when you get it like Phil's going to be getting into championship season. He had the junior this year, but like big time championship season. You think about that, it's like it's wild, right? I got to ask you guys a question. This has been on my mind,
Fire away.
and I don't want to come on here and make a mockery of championship golf. But would what if there were no volunteers? Would the championship be okay?
Interesting question. I mean, I think you would have a lot of different playing conditions.
It's just like by having like 100 people, that's you can take it. Like, are we talking like 4 percentage points? Like, how many percent? This is something I thought about this summer a lot.
Well, I mean, I think like you look at, you know, double cutting greens and mowing fairways in the morning and the evening and backpack, keep getting all the grass clippings. Heaven forbid there's a grass clipping on the fairway when they're done mowing and, you know, like bunkers perfectly raked with like smoothed edges, like Aussie style. And you think of that stuff, no way you're doing that without a volunteer, you know? And I totally get it. That's an interesting point, Andy, but
Like, what are we getting out of? Like, I think about it. It's like
I mean, you're
like
getting at Muirfield
hundreds
Village.
of people bombing it, right?
Yeah. You
And
know,
it's
Brian,
like this.
you go to Muirfield every year. I mean, they're hand rolling greens.
Yeah, you know, they
I
do it
mean,
every year. I mean,
Every golf course has its little detail that's probably like a little over the top. TPC at Sawgrass with the rotary mowers, and you know, this year with me with the backpack blowers, and
I don't. Yes, you can do them. I think that the level of expectation that the tour and that these these whoever's hosting the championships, the level of expectation that they have for the golf course, you can't do it anymore without the volunteers.
Yeah.
You know, you think of a US Open that has tee times starting at 6:50 where the sun is, you know, pretty much just coming up, and you're expecting a perfect golf course without, you know, a bad lie or all that kind of stuff.
1 in 10 tees, by the way. They're going
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
Oh,
One
split
in
tees.
10 tees. I mean, that's the majority of the tour events. They're expecting a golf course ready to be played without mowers, you know, still on the golf course, because there's the whole noise ordeal. You know, you don't want to hear a mower in the
Oh,
background
I didn't even
when
think about
someone's
that.
teeing
All the
off.
mowers have to be off the
Yeah, I
course
mean, the
by
Oh, yeah.
expectation is, you know, in most of these golf courses, you know, it's kind of tough to eliminate traffic, you know, not interfering with play at all. So yeah, I mean, it's the level of expectation, just in my experience and my, you know, travels to all the different events. You can't do it to the level that is required by these governing bodies of golf without having 70 to 100 people there to get it done. It's just not going to happen.
So,
Could
Andy, we did 36 holes for the Junior Am Monday and Tuesday, the medal play, by 7 a.m. 1 in 10 tee times. I mean, that's pure
wild.
insanity.
Dude, that's even harder
wild.
because usually
With
it's like
no
two
one on
courses.
the golf course. With no one on the golf course at 7 a.m. Starting at 4, so you're talking 3 hours of maintenance. Off the golf course by 7, signed, sealed, delivered, 36 holes, going off 1 in 10 tee.
Crazy.
All day, no time to do. So going till dark too. There's
Going
no time to do
Yeah,
after.
264 players going to dark, and then you know when you think about consistency and stuff, and then they expect the same playing conditions at 7 a.m. at 6 p.m.
Here's another question.
I love
what
it
if,
though, and I love the challenge.
if tournament golf was all like every course got to set it up themselves, wouldn't that be way more interesting?
It would be.
You get like the local flavor of every course, more or
Yeah.
less, right?
Yeah.
Like people could use like different rakes. People could like, I think about like, I think it'd be pro golf would be so much more interesting if there were no governing body setup people.
Yeah.
You probably have harder conditions at a lot of these places, because
Yeah, probably.
most superintendents want to push it
Oh
a
yeah.
little
Oakmont,
further than
Oakmont, they would never finish the first round.
Like a couple years ago when Oakmont and Longview hosted the USAM.
Yeah.
It's like there was a big rain event between the first and the second days. And I think it was like maybe like one person that played Oakmont the day that it was baked out and shit. Like one guy made it to match play. Like everybody else got it the day after, like it rained like 3 inches, so they got it like soft. So like the people that played Longview and then Oakmont after the rain, like I think it made up 63. It was something like it was at least 59 plus of the field was Longview.
You're right.
Oh man. Jeez.
But Brian, I have an idea for a video. We just grab an average Joe golfer and we bring him into the mix for the tournament week and see how far they make it. See how many split shifts they can do. See how many times they show up late.
We'll get Andy to do it. We'll get Andy to come in and
I
volunteer.
don't know.
At something.
I don't think I'm signing up for that.
We'll see if Mike wants you out at Oakmont. That's going to be a fun one. Come on.
I've got a podcast. You guys don't understand.
Yeah.
You guys don't understand the rigors of the podcasters go through U.S. Open Week. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Like, I mean, somebody's got to talk about inane stuff.
Well, there's nothing better to get content than being there at 3:00 in the morning with us when we get started. You're going to get the inside scoop.
I know. We'll see. I don't know if I'm gonna. I asked the question because I don't think I'm cut out for it. That's really why I'm asking the question about it.
Well, I can guarantee you'd be welcome. At any
absolutely.
event, so.
Yeah, I think you would love it.
Yeah. So I got to know, as much time as you've been to these different places and you've kind of been behind the scenes now with superintendents, what's one thing that's maybe really surprised you as far as what they do from an operational standpoint?
I think the management of people is the interesting thing. Like most people that are like considered great managers, they deal with like they're in these professional settings and they're dealing with like this is my professional workforce that is that is this type of person and like their interview process, everything they do kind of selects out like their organizational structure creates archetypes of people, right? And then you're applauded because you run this great um company managing this effectively the same person, right? When I look at turf teams, like there's just like such an array of personalities, languages, skill sets, ages. Like you'll have 15-year-olds to 75-year-old retirees to like like in what I like there's just like the management piece of it, I think, is to me like the most impressive is like not only delivering like a really high level product, but the orchestrating of a team with like none of the like most of the people are all completely different. This is not like managing an accounting firm with 25 accountants, right? Which generally like fill like a certain personality type. Not to stereotype all accountants, but like this is the management piece of being a superintendent. I think it's like the hardest thing, and like when I see like certain people struggle that you think are going to be like rock star superintendents just in general. I think I've learned that like the hardest part about going from an assistant superintendent to a superintendent is understanding that you're a manager. You need to empower, train, and um create people with skill sets to do the work that you would do. Because like I think the natural instinct of young superintendents, and I could be completely wrong, this is me just observing from an outside with limited knowledge. Like young superintendents, I think generally believe like, oh, I need to go do this myself. But really what needs to be done is that they need to train people and try and train people and allow them to make mistakes along the way and but with the hope of eventually having people that are better at doing these things than them, where they can continue to work on the manager. Because managing the team, getting all, whether your crew's 5 people or 55 people, getting those people on aligned on the same goal, motivated with a job that's like can be monotonous if you're not prepping for a tournament or doing construction work. Like, it's a day in, day out. So like that piece of it, like keeping the team motivated, keeping the attention to detail high, and allocation of staffing, that is like a hard job. And then you throw in like the high expectations, like you have to be able to to trust your people and build trust and I mean, I think that's like the thing. And then meanwhile, you're like training people that have never mowed anything. Like I just like to me, like the people management and the training aspect are just I couldn't imagine trying to do it. I'd be a horrible superintendent.
You'd be surprised, buddy. You'd be pretty good. Hey, Andy, I got to take off, buddy.
Hey, great chatting with you, Phil.
Great chatting
seeing
with
you.
you.
It's always good
Yeah,
seeing you.
that is a really good point, what he made. I'm having a hard time getting off because it just opens my eyes, and I got an engineer from Ford that works for me, and then I have H-2B guys, and then I have, this plethora. I have a guy that's going to school to be a barber. I also have a guy that's a retired superintendent, and you think of all this and to manage this stuff every single day, it's hard, and then you get a couple of those guys to leave and you bring in the next guy that's got something, and then these young assistant superintendents too, right? And you get the guy that's worked at XYZ club versus the guy that thinks he wants to work at XYZ club, and it's a plethora. That's the fun part, though, I would tell you right now. The agronomic stuff is easy. at this point in my career, where the managing of people is the most challenging, but the most fun and rewarding and satisfying by far.
Yeah,
So
it's probably changes too, and like your focus changes. Like when you're a young superintendent, agronomics is probably like everything.
yeah, yep, yep. But thank you guys.
Yeah.
But
Thanks for joining, Phil. Go get your
yeah,
vote in.
yep.
All right,
Andy,
buddy.
good seeing you, buddy.
Great seeing you, Phil.
All right, thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
Thanks a lot for this, Phil.
But thank you, Adam. Keep the mustache too, bro.
No, you got it, brother. Will do.
Movember continues. I love it.
November's going.
So I think
So-
based on what's
Does
that? Go ahead.
Movember count? Does Movember count if you just never shave your beard and then you just go to the mustache for like
Yeah,
3
man,
days
do it.
at the end?
That's the
I
best
think
way
the
to
full
do it. You
beard
gotta prep
counts anyways, doesn't it? Doesn't the full
I
beard
don't
still
think
count?
so.
No?
Does not.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm
They've
gonna
they've
lose
changed
that
it.
battle. Yeah.
But he mentioned the vote there. I wanted to bring up a little something. I was watching the last couple episodes of the Fried Egg, and you guys did a little bit of an election talk about, the state of golf depending on the election. Do you think that would affect the turf side or the maintenance side at all, depending on if it goes one way or the other?
I don't know. You know,
I was
I'm worn
actually
out with that topic too.
when you guys were doing.
I
when you
don't
guys
think
were
I
doing
even
your
want to
running-
wade. I don't even want to wade into that subject matter and speculate either which way.
I was when you guys were running for king or running for president, the golf. Oh my God, I was laughing so hard. You guys had me going. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I hope it came off as silly. It was supposed to be lighthearted.
Oh, it was definitely
on
lighthearted,
a very
100%.
a non-lighthearted week.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. I can't wait for tomorrow. I cannot wait.
I
So-
don't think it's going to be done tomorrow.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't know. We'll see. I don't
They
know.
just keep people sitting on pins and needles. It's crazy.
Just over it. If I see one more commercial about it, I'm gonna freak
See,
out. So,
you're a swing state guy.
it was big
Ooh.
time swing state guy.
So,
Yeah.
one
You
of the
guys are
better-
already locked up out there.
Yeah, why we pay these high taxes in California so that we don't have to watch election commercials.
Yeah,
West
lucky
Side
you.
is
Excellent.
Lucky you. Yeah, you guys.
That's what the cost of living is. Every
That's
4
it.
years we don't have
You
to.
pay for the weather and don't have to listen to political ads. You lucky you. I'm gonna have to start rethinking moving to California. I like it. But I wanted to go back to the previous question about the surprise and leadership and stuff. And I think I kind of have an idea we're going to go with the answer potentially. But what do you think makes a great superintendent?
Probably that it's come across as like all different personalities, right? You got superintendents like Phil that are I think like Phil's like a very like I think he's like a great person who's really invested in growth, but like he is a serious superintendent. Like you're coming to work like and like you've got like that type of personality, and then you've got like your Kyle Hecklin. Sandhills is a total goofball, right? Like you start some morning meetings, just running down jokes. But like there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. I think like what works is being yourself. And this is like with any pursuit in life, is that the best way to be successful is to be authentic to you. Don't try and be the person that you worked under. You have to create your own style that fits who you are, because that's like what you're going to be most comfortable in, and like you're going to get in high stress situations. If you're trying to be someone else and you're stressed out about a lot of things, like that's not going to work, right? What works is like when you're comfortable being who you are. So I think like that to me is like the first one. Like I imagine like a lot of like agronomy crews fit the personalities of their leaders, right? And obviously you have to weigh some of the club and what the club wants, all right? I think great superintendents are generally in great situations, right? Like, and they know, like, I think like some of the things that I've been most impressed about when you talk to superintendents is like jobs that they pass on, they under like, I imagine it's a profession that you're always trying to get, like, it's like a profession that is really rewarding when you get like all the way to the top tier. And it's rewarding at other different levels, but like it feels like to me as an outsider, like a very much of a race to the top, you know, 60, 70 jobs, right? Is that true?
Yeah, it can be. It
Yeah.
certainly can
Can
be. I think.
I think there's different personalities and like people are
Yeah,
content with other things like some but like with like that being part of the job it's like it's hard but like sometimes the best thing you can do is say like you know what I think I'm better off at my local club than this top 100 club because like that place that doesn't fit my vibe, right?
yeah, 100%.
Like you gotta like the club, the course and the club culture have to fit your personality, right? If you're like
That's
Hmm.
you're super laid back manager, you know, kind of like a chill dude or gal, Oakmont's probably not gonna be the place for you, right? And that being said, like if you're high energy Oakmont, like that, like I wouldn't recommend going up and like working at like in northern Michigan at like if that's like what you're trying to get out of it, right? So I think like that's the thing that I've realized like, you know, I don't know, there's just like so many great superintendents. Like Stephen Beal this year, I spending a couple days with him. I another guy that came from Chicago in that same time period and what he's done at Wolf River and like the satisfaction um and just like the I guess like fulfillment that you would get from like completely rebuilding a golf course for basically nothing and then providing this like awesome product for $32. Like to me there's like a lot of like what he's done is like been super impressive, but he's like a completely different cat than, you know, like Phil or you know. I don't so I
that.
think like I don't know, does that make any sense?
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, the more I travel around and meet with different superintendents, I find a huge correlation between the atmosphere and the culture of the club and the personality of the superintendent. I think that's when you find those the best situations, or when those two are aligned. And I think there's a right fit for everybody. Not everybody has to pursue, or and not everyone has to be at a top 100 club. I know plenty of lifelong assistants at municipal golf courses, and they love the benefits and they love the lifestyle and all that. So it is. I think it's all dependent on the person and what they're hoping to achieve in their career. Because you know, being a top 100 superintendent doesn't mean you're a success. That's not everyone's
Well,
end goal. So I don't know.
I mean like a great example would be Kyle Krecklow at Pioneer Creek in Minneapolis. Like he worked at Maidstone and Friar's Head
Yeah.
and was absolutely in that like upward, you know, trajectory, like work at a top tier club. And he just decided to move home and works the golf course his family owns. And you know what? That golf course is like getting really good, you know? And like honestly, like some of that too is like I think like that's like you have to realize what makes you happy. Cause like I think like he's like into architecture. Like what a dream job that is. Like you get to just like kind of like update your family golf course over time.
Your own little toy to tinker with over time.
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
you get to have Dave Axland and his friends come out for like 10 days every year, and you met Dave through working at Friar's Head, so you had this access to the world-class golf architect who comes out and for 2 weeks you just mess around on bulldozers and make stuff and like yeah, sure, like you know, at one point I'm sure he was probably like, you know what? I'm gonna be the super at Shinnecock Hills or something like that, like some club like that. You know, he's working at Friar's Head and Maidstone. But like, you know what? What he's doing is pretty dang cool. And like I go there, like, you know, I spent a week, I spent a couple days at Phil's place, I spent a couple days at Kyle's place, and it's like both places I'm like, man, what a cool job this guy's got, you know? I think like that's the thing. You have to find the job that's right for you.
And
Absolutely.
it's such a tough job too. Like it's not for everybody. I know you joked a little bit and saying that you couldn't do it, and you know a lot about golf, and you're a pretty smart guy, so I'm sure you'd be fine. But there's a lot of people that have tried it and can't do it, or have trained for it and don't make it, because it's a hard job. And that's why Brian and I have so much respect for these men and women, because they are very well-rounded people who have worked hard to get to where they are, and either they work their way up and they work at a championship golf course, or they find a small patch of heaven somewhere to call their own and take care of their own crew. So it's there's a lot of hardworking men and women in this industry, and if it's something that doesn't work for you right away, there are other places to land in the industry too. So we are fortunate that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great community. Like that's one of the other things that stands out to me is like just like how much camaraderie there is across cities and across the country.
Yeah, it's a very tight community. What is something maybe that you wish or that you are trying to communicate to the general golfer about what people do, what the superintendents do? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that people just understand that like the golf course is a living species. You know, I think
Yeah. You
like
just
that
don't
really
show
is
up and the golf course
Yeah.
isn't made to
yeah.
play, right? It takes
Right,
something
like I mean like I get people that like that host me and apologize if it's like a little soft and I'm like it's 97 degrees.
It's understandable.
Like the golf course has to be watered. Like they're just trying to keep this place alive. I think like that's like probably I think like understanding that like this is a moving target and it can't be perfect every day. I think like the other thing I'd love eventually to get to is like what do we need? I think one of the things that like with the turf industry that like is like it seems like it's like an arms race for like with budget and everybody's running to spend more money to get like percentage points of increases in the quality of turf. Like you like we're gonna spend 500,000 more dollars, and instead of being at 90% great agronomy, we're gonna get to 92. It's like, is that really important? Like, what if we took away $500,000 and you were at 88% or 87%? Like, I just think like that is kind of the like the conversation I'd like to start to see is what is really great golf conditioning, and what great golf conditioning is different for every facility. But just in general, I think the race for speed on the greens is something that really I would like to see kind of run the other direction than it's running right now. The idea that we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars blowing up old greens that are original greens because we want faster greens that are flatter, like that's silly to me. But like that goes back to like each club's unique, club culture is unique. What clubs want is unique and they pay the bills. Like it's like a hard thing to balance. But like to me, I think like optimization and getting better is like really great. But like I think the way we should be measuring who's getting better is who's adding ticks on the percentage without increasing the budget or reducing the budget, right? Like to me, that should be more the barrier. It shouldn't be we're just throwing, you know, millions of more dollars at it to get a couple fractions better, you know?
It's definitely well said. I mean, why
Yeah,
not?
I
If you
think
can
it,
do
like you
more with
said,
less, it's always good.
yeah. And I think you said it right. I think it boils down to the club, right? Because every club, every course is going to have different expectations, and I think a lot of times it may be efficiencies where they're looking for that increase in budget, maybe to be more efficient in one area to focus more time on another area. I mean, that's kind of what I've been seeing as far as, especially like you mentioned, old golf courses getting blown up. It's everything has a shelf life, right? I don't know. I haven't seen too many places doing it to get green speeds. I think it's about efficiencies. It's about what's under the grass and some of
A
those
lot of
things. Yeah.
softening of greens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you really seen a lot of softening of greens out there?
Yeah.
Really?
Awesome. I mean,
Interesting.
like almost all these big
Yeah.
renovations massed into it are softening of
Yeah.
greens for more pins.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
do you
true.
want
Yeah, I am seeing
do you
some of that.
want do you want fast greens or do you want really cool greens?
Yeah.
Give
Yeah.
me personally, I want really cool greens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And but that doesn't, and I think like this is a lot with like club culture. This is, I think, more centered around club culture with we have to have as fast of greens as our neighbors. It's like, well, here's were built in 1920, and there's were built in 2000, and your 1920 greens are way more unique than their 2000 greens. And if you want them as fast as those greens, you just have to make them like those greens. So it's like, to me, like speed it's an interesting topic. I think my
Nothing over
issue with
11, right, Andy?
I wouldn't mind it.
I know you guys talk about that on your show, nothing over 11, but it makes sense, right? That way people can be more creative and architects can be more creative and there can be more pinnable locations on greens.
I think like firm and fast is, and I realize I'm like kind of one of the people that push firm and fast, but like it doesn't necessarily mean firm and fast. Like the greens don't have to be fast; they have to be true, right? Firm and true is a better green moniker, I think,
Hmm.
because you can have like greens running 10 and have them be really true and really firm. Um, but yeah, I think like at the end of the day, like all the costs come back to the consumer, right? Like if a course's maintenance budget is $5 million, like they're making that back on the consumer somehow, right? So like if we want golf to be, I mean, some people don't want golf to be more accessible, more affordable, but I'm a big believer in like we need to have more people playing the sport. And if we want more
Yep.
people playing the sport, the cost has to be lower. So like to
Yep.
me, like one of the things is like, okay, let's talk about maintenance expectations. We've gotten so good at agronomy. Like, can we take a step back to realize like how far advanced this field has gotten in the last 10 years? I don't
Leaps
know.
and bounds. It's amazing. It's
Hmm.
amazing how far this industry has come. I don't know where it's going. That's kind of the crazy thing with all the new tools and technology. It's just crazy where it's going.
Well, that's the thing with technology. It just keeps
Yeah.
pushing it forward, and
Yep.
nobody ever stops and asks us, do we actually need this?
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think like we're at a moment with golf maintenance to a certain extent. Like I'm excited about autonomous because
Yep.
of like what it's going to be able to do for other like freeing up labor for like
Yep.
one of the biggest issues. But I think we're at a point with golf maintenance that there needs to be like a second to pause here and say like what is it that's like really like what is great maintenance, and like, you know, I don't know. I just
You
think that
pushing
like
like the ball rollback? You pushing for the maintenance rollback now too?
I don't think it's a maintenance rollback. It's just like let's take a second and pause and just think of like, you know, like what are the stuff that we need and what are stuff that we don't need, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And the second, if we get a little bit more measured, it just resets the idea of the call. Like, because listen, like if you do the numbers of like trying to run an affordable golf course, it's like so hard,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And you start to see some of the bills of country club dues. It's just like, this is insane where it's going, you know, like from where it was 10 years ago. And I think like, you know, maintenance is just one part of it, but like we just got to be conscientious of what we're going and sometimes ask, do we need to go here?
Yeah. I agree. Well, before we let you go here, I know you're starting you've got the all turf is local. I saw the
All
Brambles.
grass is
All
local.
grass is local. Sorry. Yes, the all grass is local. Just watched the one with Mike at Oakmont the other day. Fantastic stuff. So what's next? What else? What do you got coming up? Two more episodes, right?
We got 2 more episodes, and we're starting to plan out the next year of
Okay.
them. So we have George Wright, Len Curtin, the legend, Len Curtin, George Wright, which is I think like what we wanted to do with this is like show just like dramatically different places, dramatically different approaches, like and present how they do it, right? Like if you go into the Brambles one, there are comments that are like, these people are crazy, you know?
Yeah.
If you go into the Oakmont one, there's comments like, wow, like I don't know if this is good for golf, right? Like just because we can. So like I think that's what we wanted to do was present different places and present the way they do turf. Like this is not it's not our place to say whether one's good or one's bad. What we're doing is telling the story of how they do, how they approach agronomy. And so we wanted to go to like 4 very unique places. So Brambles is like a new build that's trying to do something, build and grow grass, grow a different type of grass and present golf in a completely different manner. Um, they have sheep out there. It's super fascinating. They're trying to grow this zoysia at the furthest north and highest altitude of anybody trying to grow their zoysia. And the whole idea of it is that it's going to be drought resistant. Oakmont obviously is like, it's Oakmont.
It's Oakmont.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Oakmont is not like anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It's a machine.
Yeah.
And I like. I mean, I watched that. I didn't go to that one. I was at the Brambles one. Cameron Hurtis, our great producer, ran point on Oakmont, and like I would talk to him after shoot days, but like I mean, I loved like just the idea of like their mentality of we over like that. There's a point where they said we overschedule every day. We know we aren't going to get everything done, but we're going to try and get as much of it done as possible. And like that mentality to me just like resonated with like a startup, right? Where like
yeah.
There's no way like every day my to-do list I feel like gets longer. But I start every week with a to-do list.
Yeah.
And it like by the end of the week I hope I check off a lot and like some weeks I get close and I'm like, God, that was great, but I never get done with it. And like that just resonated with me. So then we go to George Wright will be the next one. And it's like how do you they have some crazy employment laws. I'm not sure like employment rules, like you have to be a city resident, you have to pass a drug test, and then you make minimum wage. So it's like your labor pool is tiny. You have this golf course that's like it's one of the busiest golf courses in the world. It's a really great golf course, like Bones, that they're improving regularly, and they have like a shoestring crew and budget. So like we go from Oakmont to like
You're
just like complete opposite. And then we finish with Chambers Bay, which is like I think it's an interesting story from like here's this golf course that got built for US Opens that had this visceral reaction to turf, and now they're transitioning to their next era of golf, so we're starting to formulate next year's, and I've started to think about some of them, like what would be good ones, and it's exciting. Like I'm excited. Like I mean, I've loved how the first 2 have turned out, and I'm really excited to like continue to do these when you just because like you guys know from what you do, like every turf operation is so different, right? And the personalities of the supers are all different. I think it's really neat.
All the different characters in the turf world, eh? They're full of them.
Be the best. It would be the best reality show, no question.
Just
Hands
at a
down,
shop.
The best reality show would be at a maintenance shop. I don't know many courses that would actually allow that to happen because of all the shenanigans.
Nobody
that
be
go on in
employed
there.
after.
It would be the absolute best reality TV show. I would be hooked, no question.
You guys spend more time in there. I'm like kind of like a couple hour and done guy. You
Pop
guys
in,
are like a
pop
couple days. You're like a week long in bed.
Yeah, only
No,
for
it's
tournaments. Only for tournaments.
You get a little bit more of the real picture.
Yeah. Yeah, they trust us with some of those more unique stories every now and then. So it's good. They never make error, but awesome. Well, before we let you go, Andy, is there anything you want to talk about?
No, I just I love what you guys do. It's nice to be just tangentially in the same space. So I appreciate you guys having me on. It was fun
Yeah.
chatting. I hope I
No,
didn't just ramble too much.
no, it was great.
No.
Love getting the perspective, and again, appreciate what you're doing for this industry. I mean, it's again, like I mentioned in the beginning, there are not too many people, covering the golf space that talk about superintendents. So having someone like you and the fried egg shining a light on the superintendent profession is much needed, and it truly is making a difference for sure. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, superintendents are I don't want to offend anybody else in the golf course industry, but resoundingly superintendents are my favorite people I meet when I travel to golf courses. I it's my preferred entry method. You know,
Absolutely. It's usually
I hope not a lot of members are listening to this, but like when I go down like the list of like how I might go visit a golf course, like it's superintendent and architect like all the way up at the top, and then it's like
and then
there's
everybody else, huh?
yeah, and it's just like kind of like an abyss downward from
Yeah.
there, you know,
But like you
because
said, I mean, if you're an architecture focused outlet, right? So I don't know many people that understand how the architecture of the golf course works better than a superintendent. Obviously, a pro understands the strategy of playing it and all that. But the superintendents, I mean, it's their responsibility to maintain the integrity of the architecture, right? I mean, without them and the way they maintain a golf course, I don't know, like maybe it's a strong statement, but the architecture really doesn't matter if it's not being prepared properly.
what I also like is like you just could talk like, you know, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're at Oakmont or if you're at
my
public course
favorite
down the
thing.
street. Most of them want to put their jeans on, grab a beer, and talk shop, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like my favorite thing is they're not trying to like show me stuff. We just play and talk, you know? Because
Yeah,
it's like the, you know, like that's what I like about it is that with just hanging out with the superintendents. It's just a
Yeah.
much better it's just a I love like I mean they know every corner, everything that's ever happened to generally like the great historian aspect of it. Like yeah,
yeah.
this is what happened here. This is why it's here. It's you know. So it's I yeah, I love hanging out with superintendents. I yeah, it's some of my favorite memories are with them. So
They're a special breed for sure.
yeah. All right,
Well,
thanks
man,
guys for having me
yeah, we
on.
can't thank you enough for coming on here. Honestly, you do a great job promoting what we do in our industry and everything. And the fried egg was a big inspiration for Turf Today on Instagram and all of your drone shots and everything. Like when we created that page, it was all about the beauty of the golf course, and the fried egg was highlighting it very well. So thank you for coming on today, and no, thanks for everything you do for the industry.
All right, thanks guys.
All right, man. Take care, Andy. Good to see you.
Great
Take
seeing
care,
you
brother.
guys.
Take care.